Bengals at number 3 and Chiefs at number 4 and Bills at number 5. Let's just talk about all those three teams, right? Mm-hmm. The three teams that are considered powerhouses in the AFC, the three best quarterbacks in the AFC, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. Do you agree? Bengals 3, Chiefs 4, and Bills 5.
I think they would definitely be teams that I would have up there. They're absolutely in the conversation. I think there's a couple of others that I would think about adding into that group. But Cincinnati's team, it's a lot like Philadelphia's in terms of it's extremely complete. There's very few obvious holes. They, like Philadelphia, have sort of future-proofed or, have prepared the transition at a couple of positions. Daxton Hill coming in after essentially redshirting as a rookie. They've prepared for things like that. Incredibly good skill position players, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon in the backfield. They've added depth, Irv Smith, tight end, obviously Joe Burrow. They have strength all across the defense. There's a couple of potential weak links in terms of individual starters, but that's similar to Philadelphia. That's similar to, the other teams that we're talking about. So I think they're absolutely in that group. Buffalo, they're doing a good job of trying to get back to where they were last year. Like, in particular, the recent moves, the additions that they've been making, like Leonard Floyd should be a boost to that team. Cameron Dantzler, maybe he's shown in the last couple of years you don't really want him starting, but if he ends up being your number 4 corner, that's pretty good depth to have. So I think Buffalo's doing a good job of repairing that roster and getting back to where we expect them. And then Kansas City, they've made improvements on that roster, and obviously so much of it is dependent on Mahomes and Travis Kelce.
Yeah, listen, I think these are the right teams in this area. I might put the Chiefs at 3. It is fascinating how swayed you can get, though. Like, the difference between the Chiefs and the Bengals last year, was it that drastic? Was it that drastic? I know the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, right?
Right.
And I think we all agree, okay, Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. I thought we agreed before that game that it was, even though there was the media stuff, which is like, if Joe Burrow and the Bengals win, he's the best quarterback and not Mahomes. But it's like, all right, it's one game. But the Chiefs winning does tend to sway what you believe going in. Like, oh, they're the champs. Everything was, they're clearly the best team. When it was like a Joseph Asai penalty that put them into field goal range. I mean, it was a fine line between the Chiefs and the Bengals. But I would probably put the Chiefs just above the Bengals, in part because I think Cincinnati has more question marks, right? They lose more starters, despite bringing in, let's say, an Orlando Brown and shoring up the offensive line. And then the Chiefs love what they did last year in the draft. I think guys like Sky Moore will be ready to break out. I think they last year's rookie class, which did contribute, look, this was what they were building for, was to be better this year. And I think the Chiefs will be a little bit better. Bringing in guys like Charles Omenihu. I think they've shored up the defensive line. Mm-hmm. Interested to see what the Chiefs' offensive line looks like. Donovan Smith did not look great last year, but his baseline is pretty average to solid, which is good for, your starting left tackle. Jawan Taylor, better pass blocker than run blocker. I like the Chiefs a little bit better than the Bengals or the Bills. Am I getting too swayed by the fact that they won it? The fact that they just happened to win it and by a small margin over the Bengals. And had they played the Bills, the Bills beat them last year, right? It is a small margin between all of these teams.
Yeah, I think that they've made significant improvements. Like Charles Omenihu from Frank Clark should be a significant upgrade for that team. They've also added other spots. And Trent McDuffie didn't play all season last year, but looked pretty good when he did play. And if he takes a significant step forward, that's huge for them in the secondary. Their offensive line, I think, is the best of that group of the Buffalo, Cincinnati, Kansas City. Like, they have the best offensive line.
They should, yeah.
They're a little bit concerning just in terms of what happens if Travis Kelce goes down. Like that, we've seen last year with Cincinnati. What if Jamar Chase goes down? Well, it turns out T. Higgins steps up as a number 1. Everything's good. You could have the same argument with Buffalo. What happens if Stephon Diggs goes down? But I think generally there's a bit more depth there. The question of what happens if Patrick Mahomes has to work without Travis Kelce, I think, is a fair one. But it's also, that's not the case right now, right? It's inventing a negative scenario that isn't necessarily there. But I think Kansas City has a better roster now than they've had for actually most of the time that Patrick Mahomes has been there.
And then the Bill, like, are we actually sleeping on the Bills at 5 for the same reasons that I said? Because the most recent thing we saw, they lost in the divisional round pretty handily to the Bengals. But, like one game here and there. Were the Bills actually that much worse last year than they were the previous year? I don't know. I don't know if they are. But it's all fair. I think those teams being in the same range. Apparently what we have on the screen is a little different. We have than the article. But I like the Chiefs at 2 instead of in the 49ers at 3. I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Chiefs, Bengals, and Bills, though, I think by all accounts, they are the teams to beat in the AFC.